Hey guys, welcome to Now That's Debatable. This is your host, Fantastic Assad. I am joined with my trusty co-host, Triple A the Humanist. Today we're going to be having a couple guests on, and we're going to be talking about, is life better with Christianity or without? The title I have up on the screen is Life is Better as a Heathen. That obviously is up for debate. But we're going to kick it over. We have Justin and we have Michael with us. Their names are up on the screens. They have a question for either one of them specifically. You can ask it and direct it towards them. That way you know who you're looking at. I might get our faces up on the screen, and then I'll let them take over and kind of introduce themselves. So in any order, Justin or Michael, if you'd like to introduce yourselves, you can go ahead and get started. Your faces are up on the screen. We have chat going up live. So feel free to take it away.
All right, hey, yeah. I'm Michael McKnight. I was in the Army out of high school and went down to Fort Bragg. Jumped out at planes as an airborne paratrooper, and I don't know. Basically, personally, met Jesus while I was in the Army. I've been a Christian technically on paper my whole life up until that point, but it really just became real for me when I was down at Fort Bragg. And then basically got out of active duty, went to school, got my bachelor's in accounting, and that was about 2 Mays ago when I graduated from college. And then I went on this thing called the World Race, which is basically a 1-year-long mission trip, Christian mission trip, and basically went to 6 different countries and spent about 2 months in each of the countries. Went to Guatemala, Romania, Albania, Turkey, Jordan, and Thailand, and basically finished that up last August, and then went on a 2-month road trip across the United States, and now I'm just hanging out with my parents for the holidays before I start my next sector of life. But yeah, sorry, a little long, but yeah, I've lived a little.
Okay. So hey, Justin, did you want to introduce yourself, or
Sure.
do you want to jump straight to the convo?
My name is Justin. Similar to Mike, we actually both in the Army. Been in the Army for 11 years now. Went as active duty, then National Guard. I got an undergrad in biblical studies. I'm currently a police officer, and I've been on a few podcasts before debating these kind of issues. So I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Okay, awesome. So for tonight's discussion, we had talked offline, and you wanted to argue that Christianity is, you can live a life better. You can live a better life with Christianity, regardless of whether the claims of it are true.
Regardless on whether God exists or not.
Okay, so just specifically, yeah. Okay, well, mate, but all right, so
you froze. Your internet's terrible.
If there's no, wouldn't be true.
Oh, sorry, right? You froze.
Okay, I was saying that if there's no God, then the vast majority of the claims of Christianity, at least the most important ones, wouldn't be true, right? There wouldn't be a God who can judge us because there's no God. All right, there wouldn't be Jesus raising from the dead. Well, maybe he could be, but he just wouldn't be God. So he wouldn't have the power to redeem us from his sins, and there wouldn't be anything to be redeemed from because there's no God, right? So I guess like most of the important metaphysical propositions of the gospel would now cease to be relevant if there was no God. Could we agree?
So like basically the way this all got started is because on Facebook you had said that there's not a good reason, like there's no good reason to be a Christian.
Well, no, that's not what I said. But
all right,
yeah. I mean, like, I'd rather not make this about a Facebook post. But what I was just saying, like, if you don't have a good reason to hold a belief, then just release the belief, regardless of what that is. And so there may be some people who have a good reason to be a Christian, and I've met people that were Christian not because they actually believe the claims thereof, but because of some other reason. And if so, that's fine. But what I'm saying, if you're saying that there is some utility in Christianity without a God, then okay, the most of the important propositions in Christianity are dependent on a God, like the entire gospel. Like if there's no God, right, there's no condemnation. There's like, right, no reward.
See, yeah, all you're talking about is like stuff that deals with like after you die, which isn't. But
all of that is dependent on a God.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so so the point was, so when we're looking at the utility of Christianity, regardless of whether there's a God, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I like to know what those are. What you got?
Yeah, for sure. And just to so this is what you had said. What else should we do? What else should you do with the belief that you have no good reason to hold besides abandon it?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Technically, if we can prove that there's even one good reason to hold on to it, that's what you made was a wrong claim.
Well, so
no. So
if the claim is that you should abandon it if you don't have good reason, then the claim would be if you have good reason, you have no reason to abandon it. So, I mean, I think he and I have very similar views on things. We want to believe things for good reasons, and some people believe things for reasons, and some people believe things for good reasons. Some people believe things based on evidence. Some people do it based on personal experience. There's a lot of reasons people believe things. But I think, at least from I've known him a very long time, and I would say just reading that post from him, I would say that in general, if you don't have a good reason to believe something, no matter what that is, you should abandon that belief and hold of you of skepticism, or withhold a opinion on it. So, like, do you have a strong opinion on, like, the concept of cloning or something like that, right? Well, if you haven't developed this idea on it yet, maybe just withhold your stance on it until you've researched it and you found out more and you are able to give good reasons why you either support or oppose the idea of cloning. Same can be said for Christianity or anything else for that matter. I don't think it was strictly towards Christianity, although we are both atheists.
Yeah, because if we come to this conversation with the approach of, if I can just give one good reason to be a Christian, then I win the debate, then it's not a very interesting conversation. Because I could say this, like, let's say I'm a pastor who makes a lot of money from my church. That's a good reason to be a Christian, right? That doesn't, I mean, that's a pretty stupid reason to be a Christian, I would say. But you could just say, oh, we can make money from it. A gospel artist, Kirk Franklin, right? There's a lot of utility in him remaining a Christian, even if he stopped believing it. But but
we're mainly just talking about the common day person.
Yeah. So my understanding was you thought, or you believe currently, that Christianity can somehow enhance your life, and this is separate from the metaphysical claims of the gospel.
That is correct.
Okay, so like, what are they?
Yeah. So, and we could just go right into them. But so I've given you like a list just off the top of my head at that point. Like, for instance, Christians have no reason to fear death.
Should anyone fear death? I mean, especially like upon the concept that God's not real, right? So there's no hell.
Right. That's what I was
right?
going to say. Right, because
you said if the God isn't real, you still have utility in it. But without God, there is no hell for me to worry about burning in. Therefore, there's no reason for me to worry about death either. Yeah,
there's no reason for anyone to worry about death.
No, there's a reason for you to worry about death, because that's literally all your life is here on Earth. If it gets cut short, then that's it.
Okay, but that's the same for you. So there's no given for you that I don't have.
Okay, so do you? But maybe you believe that there's a heaven you could go to, even though there wouldn't be a God there. It's just somehow it has.
Well, no, I never said there wasn't a God. I just said irrespective of if there is a God or not.
Sure, but that claim specifically, that one benefit that you had mentioned, that seems to be contingent on a God.
No, it's because, like, you think there's not a God already. and I already don't fear death.
Right.
So,
I don't fear death either, but I don't think there's a God. So I feel like we're on even playing grounds. What benefit do you have for being a Christian that I don't have? Especially if you take away the supernatural. Because it seems to me the benefit of not fearing death for you is that you're content that you're going to go to heaven. And that you think that if I assume there's a hell, I should be afraid of dying. But since I don't assume there's a God, I don't fear death. And since you said, irrespective of whether there's a God or not, you have utility. Well, if there's no God, then you're not going to heaven either, right? So we have exactly the same playing field again.
Yeah, I'm not talking about post-life. I'm talking about here in the now.
Okay. All right.
So you're saying you're not like afraid of, like, if I put a gun to your head, you wouldn't be afraid to die in general.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's just a state of being for you, right? Like, if someone threatened your life or threatened your family's lives, you wouldn't be afraid for them.
I'm not sure if I believe that.
Like,
so a guy came in your house right now with a rifle, he's shooting people, and you just like,
yeah, it's fine.
I mean, you're still gonna fight back, but I mean, we're all.
Okay,
we're in the army, like. I think we're pretty.
Okay,
calm
let's say you're a Christian right now. You do not fear death. Okay, could you elucidate? Could you explain further?
So like if somebody else in our family dies and they're Christian, like we're not gonna have grief. We have, or at least a reduced version of grief.
Why not?
We're gonna have a reduced version because we know that, or we believe that they're gonna go to heaven.
And God is God is like sustaining heaven, right?
All right. You guys focusing too much on God right now. I'm talking about.
But you said irrespective of whether a God was real. Yeah, so if you throw out God, you throw out the supernatural with them, including heaven and hell. So there's no benefit
to God right now.
Well, I mean, it's odd that we're the ones choosing God in the statement, but yeah.
I thought the idea was the utility of it, irrespective of God. If you want to include God, we can do that.
No. See, all right. This is my point. Maybe this will help clear things up. Okay. The whole reason this conversation is happening, for simplicity's sake, like I can't prove that there is a God or not a God. All right. So we're just gonna focus on what we can prove, and that's like when somebody dies, I'm not gonna have grief because I think they're going to heaven. I don't really know if they're going to heaven or not, but I believe they're going to heaven, so that's going to have a real world effect.
So you're saying right now,
in general, you wouldn't grieve your friend's death or family's death?
That's what I was about to say. Like a close friend, and like my mother died. Like my mother died while I was an atheist. But I mean, even if she died while I was a Christian, I would have had grief. Still believing that I'll see her in the next life, I would still have grief. Matter of fact, every Christian that I've ever known to have lost a close loved one had grief.
I'm not saying you're not going to have grief at all.
What other? I thought that's exactly what you said.
No, I said a reduced version of grief.
Okay,
but
I don't know of an objective way to measure grief. Like he grieves more, and then than this other person, and it's because of
also
Christianity.
And I hate to keep going to the same well, but like let's say hypothetically, I could prove to you that heaven was made up and there was no God, right? Would you lose some of that reduced grief because you knew you wouldn't see your family and friends again?
Yeah.
Then without a God, you're at the same level of grief again, right? Like, it just seems that, like, the utility that Christianity brings is strictly supernatural. Like, other than that, you and I kind of have the same playing field.
Yeah, that's what we're here to debate.
Right. So, I mean, I'm trying to find something that you have that I couldn't have without a false sense of belief in something, right?
All right, I'll hop in here, too, just to...
Yeah, by all means, Justin.
So you use the word utility, so I assume you guys are referring to some form of ethics, which almost...
utility means use.
Yeah, I'm just just use. There's some sort of benefit. That's all I mean. I'm not talking about utility as in the ethical philosophy of utilitarianism. No, I'm just not utility as in use.
Okay, but since I brought it up anyways, I'll just dive into the utility part of it.
Go for it.
With ethics, you said I didn't keep going back and forth about bringing God into it, as in the sense of what do you have, what we don't, blah blah blah. what is the ethical system where you guys get your framework where it isn't completely arbitrary? Because that's the point where I'm gonna jump in and say, if despite
Yeah.
as atheists, so
All right, we
as a worldview, and I think Fantastic said that they're, you have to do evidence and proof and say some things are more reliable than others, and you have to draw your own conclusions. But from an ethical worldview, how are you constructing that to where it's not completely arbitrary, to where you can sit here and say that my worldview is wrong and your worldview is right? And if you can't do that, then what's the point of the debate?
Okay.
Before I answer that, can I ask a really random question?
We're completely changing the topic.
Yeah, AAA.
That's what-
AAA. Can I ask a question real quick?
Okay,
Before we dive into it, I will gladly answer the question for you. I swear.
Okay.
But before I answer that, I do want to ask a general question. Do you think that Christianity provides a good source of ethical behavior for humans?
I think it provides the only consistent worldview for ethics.
Do you think it's good,
or every
though?
humanism or secular humanism that you have?
Do you think it's good?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to establish that before we continue this conversation. So...
Can I want to just a comment?
Yeah, go ahead and read the comment.
He says, here we go again. He's going to say morals is based on what's good for you. I mean, yeah, what else would you base it on? You wouldn't say what's good is immoral, or you wouldn't say, oh, what's bad for you is a moral thing to do. Being murdered is bad because being murdered is bad for you. That's why. But okay, so I guess so you wanted it to go into my moral framework.
Well, yeah, I guess.
All right. So to be clear, there's not an atheist moral framework. This is what I subscribe to. I'm a secular humanist. So is Facade. So morality is measured by well-being. That's what we compare it to. That is the standard. So just like if you want the standard for what 12 inches is, you would use a ruler, right? A ruler is a foot is equal to 12 inches, and you would measure how close. If you wanted a board to be precisely 12 inches, you compare it to a ruler. And however close that board is to that ruler, the more perfectly foot it is, right? So the closer you are to well-being, the more moral you are. That is the standard. So for instance, if I were to come to you and punch you in the face, that's immoral because it's not good for you to be punched in the face. That is so. Say that again.
It might be.
No, it's not according to my framework.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, even if you were a person who desired to be punched in the face, like if you were a sadist, if you will, and you enjoyed that, you might have someone do that for you to bring up your own levels of happiness, but your level of health would be decreasing at the same time. So, in a sense, as you're a consenting adult, if you like being punched in the face and you want somebody to do that to you, by all means you can, but you have to keep in mind that your health is also part of your overall well-being. So how you determine your well-being is going to come from what you personally value the most. If you determine that your happiness is more important than your health, and you get happiness out of someone punching you in the face, even though it's bad for your health, you might say it's fine for you to morally punch me in the face. But if I didn't know that about you, punching you in the face is just bad for your health. Therefore, it's immoral.
Also, to address a comment, and this might help clarify the conversation. Zach asked, who are you to decide what is good for everyone? Did you create humans? So it doesn't matter who created who. And I'm not deciding what's good for everyone. So it's reality itself. So if I were to come to you and slit your throat, I didn't decide that slitting your throat is bad for you. Your physiology is crafted in such a way that slitting your throat will be bad for your health. It's just an objective fact. I didn't determine that. I couldn't change the outcome of what would happen to you. I cannot make slitting your throat good for you. So I'm appealing to objective reality and not deciding morality. No one's deciding it. We're just looking at there are truths. Secular humanism is just the idea that there are objective facts of the universe that could be understood by humans, and we can look at these facts and look at the way the universe affects us and the way we affect it. And using well-being, we can look at the way these interactions occur. We can say like I was talking about slitting your throat. It's just a fact that that's going to harm you. That is what I'm calling immorality. I'm making an analytic proposition about that. That is how I'm defining it.
So you have to use you said you brought the example of a ruler, and which is kind of curious to use a standard, a literal standard to measure something that is objective, and then but your worldview, and we both share the same worldview, but that worldview is one where people are more relativists and humanists, and they decide what's right in their own eyes, and they just determine that.
No,
So you can't objective standard for a worldview that is vastly different between individuals where they construct.
Wrong. So I'm making an analytic proposition. Okay. So like you know what I mean by that analytic proposition? Like I'm trying
to understand your worldview right now. So keep this.
Okay. All right. So, all right. But well, if you don't understand the term, then you won't understand what I'm saying. It's like so analytic proposition, I'm just defining the term.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say morality, I'm talking about something that is based off of well-being. If you were to say that your morality is based off of what a God thinks, we're using the same word, but we're talking about different things. So now there's an equivocation. Do you understand?
I do.
Okay.
The ultimate source of your morality is essentially consequences of how it affects somebody else.
No, it's reality. Reality. So if I slit your throat, in reality, it will harm you.
Yes,
that's a fact.
Pointing the gun at you, trying to rob you, and you slit my throat to defend yourself. Is that good or bad?
That's immoral.
So both actions of the gun holder and the slit throater are immoral, but the person who slit the person's throat who was being held at gunpoint is justified immorality by defending themselves by protecting their own health and safety.
Yeah. What he said.
That conclusion.
How did it come to that conclusion?
Yes.
Because he was protecting his well-being. It's not good for me to get shot, so I slit your throat to defend myself. So it's justified.
It's an immoral. It's still as immoral to slit your throat, whether you held a gun to my head or not. But by holding a gun to my head, you're putting me in a position that my well-being, my very life, is in danger, and I'm going to make a immoral act in order to protect myself and my health. So I'm aware that slitting your throat's immoral no matter what, because it's bad for you no matter what. But because you're holding a gun to my head and you're putting me in a position that's threatening my very livelihood, I'm going to make this immoral act and decision based on the circumstances that you put me in, and I'm going to defend my life. But it is still an immoral act. It's still bad for you.
So going off of that, so I understand what you guys are saying. Your worldview is essentially it's good, or using terms like good or bad, which I find ironic. But
I'm using immoral. So okay, I mean, we can say good or bad, like just like a colloquial. But we can say as a colloquial. Yeah. But when good, generally we're saying moral, and bad, generally we're saying immoral in this context.
Right. It's an even better term. Is if it affects you or the other person in a physical sense.
I mean, it could be a mental sense. It could be. There's a number of senses that can impact you.
Well, yeah. So we talked. Yeah, it's a number of things. Like well-being consists of like your mental health, your physical health. It can consist of your wealth. It consists of your happiness, and like your freedom. These things are also interconnected. By damaging your wealth, I could also be damaging your health as a result. Like you need medicine, and I steal it from you. I'm stealing your wealth. Well, now you're going to be sicker. That's going to affect you physically as well. So I mean, all these things are interconnected. So well-being encompass a bunch of things that all make up your experience.
Yeah, just like I was saying earlier, when you gave the reference of getting punched in the face, I said you very well could value that over your own health. But as a person that doesn't know that, it would be immoral for me to just walk up and randomly punch you in the face, right? But you may value your own happiness, and you may get so much pleasure out of such act that you'd rather take the pain that comes with that, or as opposed to the pleasure that you receive from it, because you're a sadist. Like, that's fine, not judging you, but for me to determine that for you wouldn't be my right. And if I just randomly walked up having no clue you were a sadist and punched you in the face, you might appreciate it, but for me it was an immoral act because I didn't know this, and I'm straight up harming your physical health. But your mental health may increase. You might get a dose of serotonin. I mean, who knows? It's not my place to say.
So we're not, because now we're like, well, off the side, like I was gonna say, he's delving into moral epistemology now. It gets way more complicated. We're just talking about the ontology of it. Everything Facade said was right. I agree, but he's just going really deep.
So if I said getting hit in the face is good for me, and you wouldn't hit me in the face, are you immoral?
If you say getting hit in the face is good for you, you mean like you see like somebody like me, like my strength hitting you as hard as I can, like Haymaker.
I think it's a good thing. I want you to do it. Is that
you'd have the freedom.
To be clear, we're appealing.
I thought it was good for me.
To be clear, we're appealing. Do you understand that somebody could believe something is good for them, even though it's not?
Like atheism.
Well, I mean, in what way would that be?
Hold on. So nobody here, neither Facade nor I, would say atheism is good for us. We don't believe in God. We're not talking about atheism.
Essentially, I think we're trying to talk about determining truth.
Is not good for you, so being a heathen is wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, like,
better than
stacking books vertically instead of horizontally isn't good for me.
Let's get back on topic. He was saying like if he says getting hit in the face is good for me. Do you understand that somebody can believe something is good for them even though it's not?
And are they wrong though?
I mean,
but I'm asking you a question. Can you answer my question?
Yes, you obviously I believe people can believe things that aren't.
All right. So it is not so morality. It is not about belief. It is about the objective facts of reality. If I were to hit you in the head with a sledgehammer, even if you thought that was good for your health, it would not be. We're talking about moral ontology. So belief is totally irrelevant here. We're talking about the objective facts of reality.
So I wouldn't be immoral then to ask you to hit me.
I mean, you could ask, but I wouldn't be obligated to do so.
It depends. So right now, if you say, "Hey, can you hit me?" I'm like, no, that I will consider that amoral.
I consider that immoral then if you don't hit me. So it's kind of.
It doesn't matter what you consider it. It's about.
I mean, like you could just make up your own thing. But like that's not relevant to how like our conversation is going, nor is it relevant to how we've determined our moral framework.
Yeah, I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand what we're saying.
Well, I was trying to get
it is not about
framework, which I think I've got a hold of it now. So
I don't think you did because you said but like what if you disagree, and that doesn't matter. So
right.
Okay, moral ontology is not about disagreement or belief or knowledge. We're talking about objective facts of reality.
Yeah, like, so for instance, like, it doesn't matter what your opinion is on you being hit in the face by him with a haymaker. He's a strong dude. The objective reality is the consequences that would come from him punching you in the face would probably be, depending on where he hits you, a concussion. And probably worse. Like, you may break bones, you'd bleed, you'd have like swelling. All these things are objective to what happens when somebody gets socked in the face by a guy his size, right?
And that's because of physics.
Facts.
That has nothing to do with your belief or your opinion. It doesn't matter what God thinks. Physics. This is going to harm you. Period. So because of that harm you, by my definition, by my analytical proposition, it is thus immoral. That is the framework. I'm appealing to objective reality. So there's no need to bring up belief or what if somebody thinks this? Doesn't matter.
We can just look and see if it's going to cause harm, then it would be immoral.
No, I just wanted to put you in get your worldview on display as far as in one hand you're holding to an objective reality on the other hand, use words like my belief or my understanding of analytical and stuff. And so it's like, in one hand, you have to hold to an objective reality to judge things by. At the same time, those apparently can differ based off of how you understand the things, not a belief, but as far as how those things play out, whether it's utilitarianism or consequentialism, how it affects. So,
well, I mean, it's based on the objective reality of the universe. Like, for instance, a brick falling on you was going to cause you harm, right? We can just observe this as a fact that we know that a brick falling on you would cause you harm. However, me throwing a brick at you would cause you harm, and it's because of my actions that the brick hit you. It doesn't matter in which case the brick hits you, right? You're going to be harmed. And we can observe this from a completely third-party perspective. We can recognize the damage that it's going to cause, and we can determine that if there was an actor involved, it would be immoral. So if I threw the brick at you, the act of me throwing the brick and it hits you causes a physical damage to your body, whereas a brick just falling from, natural causes or earthquake or something, obviously there's no bad actor involved, right? There's no one performing this act. So it's just falling on you. The brick can in and of itself have a morality. The injury is still going to be the same. You're still going to be harmed. So when you throw in a bad actor to an action that causes harm, you have an immorality. And the way you determine that is by viewing reality itself and seeing if it causes harm. And if it does, it's an immoral act. No matter what person you put into it, no matter what that person feels about it or what they believe, you can just take a step back, look at it. Did it cause harm? If the answer is yes, it's an immoral act.
Can I ask a question? So we got a morality, right? Which is kind of way off topic. Were we doing that to try to show that we didn't have an objective basis, therefore Christianity is better because somehow it does provide an objective basis? Was that the argument?
That was the question in general for the debate. So maybe I was wrong, but I thought it was essentially what Michael had said at the beginning about what does Christianity have, or Christianity would be good regardless if it was true or not.
Christianity has very shitty morals.
In what way?
Well, I don't think Christianity provides a moral system at all. I think it's just the arbitrary list of shalls and shall nots. It doesn't seem to be tied to well-being. God doesn't seem to have humans, care in mind at all with these rules. I think it's utter nonsense. Sometimes it's bad to kill. Sometimes it's good to kill. It depends on his preference.
And who the people are and who they're fighting against and at what time it is in history.
Yep, you see this all throughout the Bible. I mean, I'm sure you're both of you seem pretty familiar with the scriptures. I don't have to go into examples here, but that is trashy morals. But you could never, in my system, say murder is good or that killing people, and especially children, is good. You would of Christianity because God told them to do it. That is trash morals. The Holocaust could be moral under the Christian framework if God told them to do it. This is trash morals.
I know you're thinking about that. I just want to remind you of the story of the Amalekites. And then if you don't know what that is, we can talk about it.
But you didn't do.
You remember the story of the Amalekites?
Punch, you can say you got to give examples.
Okay, fine. The Amalekites. I'll give the example of the Amalekites. God told the Hebrew children to go kill the Amalekites, all the men, all the women that have slept with a man, and all the children up to a certain age. Babies. Even the little babies. Keep the women that are virgins for yourself.
Yep, take that spear, baby.
Yeah, so if you're a male baby, you're getting murdered. If you're a male young youth or a woman who's had sex, you're getting murdered.
Yes. And there was one people that Saul, when he was king, he didn't completely go total genocide on him. And God was angry about that and said it's going to be a thorn in their side for it. So now it was immoral to not resort to genocide. This is Christian morals.
Are you guys pro-life then?
I'm pro-choice.
The Bible's, I'm pro-choice.
I don't think the Bible is either.
Pro-life. This is the ironic part of the Bible. So,
what do you guys get?
We're pro-choice, but here's the ironic part of the Bible, right?
Well, so on the left,
they argue. It's the woman's choice. right? And on the right, they argue, hey, the baby is made in the image of God, and so he has a right to live, right? The Bible takes both sides and pisses everybody off, right? Because if the wife in Mosaic law, if the husband suspects the wife was cheating, he can take her to the temple, make her drink this magic dust soup, and then it'll cause her to have an abortion, and it'll make her infertile. She's no longer able to have any children, which obviously results in the child being killed as well. So it takes the woman's choice out of it, and it also kills the baby. But yes, we're both pro-choice.
Okay, that's what I was.
Yeah, but and don't forget this passage before appealing to the Bible for being pro-life. Fasad just gave you an example of God ordering people to murder babies.
Yeah. Also, by the way, like pregnant women would be included with that. Like anyone pregnant in the town, like because they weren't virgin women, would be murdered.
Yes,
because God commanded it.
Right.
Yeah,
and when he commands it, if you don't do it, God gets mad.
He killed everybody on the planet with the Noah's flood, and
Sure.
didn't hurt anyone.
Sure.
The miracle isn't that he the bad thing isn't that he killed all the Amalekites. The miracle is that he allowed Israel to keep living, and everybody else, even though they were sinful.
Yeah. I mean, you could say the same thing for the Holocaust if God was involved.
Right. That's what I was about to say. All the people that were killed in the Holocaust were sinful.
And everyone's that propaganda.
Right. So this is what I was talking about. So under the Christian framework, you could justify the Holocaust. God told Hitler to do it. He was just
the worldview that created the Holocaust.
Well, Hitler was a professing Catholic, but we won't go there.
Yeah, and he was a Nazi. So I mean, if you're going to say he was an atheist, then
you're just wrong. He was a Catholic.
First of all, you're wrong. He was not an atheist. But like we said from the beginning, when we first got on morality, there is no atheist view on morality. We're appealing to secular humanism. Mm-hmm. You're not going to look at atheism and then be able to decide what your morals are.
It's kind of like saying so atheism is a stance on God, and it's kind of like saying we want to appeal to like your political views or something. Well, I mean, I don't really care if you're left wing or right wing. I don't care if you're a communist or a Nazi. It depends on your moral systems and the actions you're taking. That's how I'm going to judge it. So if you're doing things on one political side or one political party in the name of a god or in the name of Nazism or in the name of communism, I'm just going to judge it based on the actions that you perform. Now, if you're doing it in the name of your God, which happened a lot in the Old Testament, it happens a lot in modern Middle East, where things are getting you're name dropping your God, saying you're doing these things for your God, then if that's the way you want to kind of take your moral system or take your instruction, then you can't really blame Muslims for blowing themselves up in the name of like Allah, because your God has done infinitely worse things for his own name.
And again, so just we could put a pause for the cause for our audience here. I don't know who's watching on the YouTube or comments. So two things. One, so you guys are both atheists, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Describe secular humanism for me at the same time both of you go.
Okay, so secular humanist is a worldview, and
I'm gonna wait. I don't see any benefit. We're just gonna talk over each other.
I'm just kidding. One of you at a time, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't matter.
I was gonna say so. I thought I defined it. So secular humanism is just the idea that there are facts about reality, and humans are capable of understanding some of these facts. There are facts about reality, the way that it affects us, the way we affect it, things that can do us harm and do us good. And humans are capable of understanding some of these facts, right? What we should do is take our knowledge and prioritize humanity for our actions, for our activity. That is just the idea of it. So there's not necessarily like a monolith of secular humanists either. You have another secular humanist that might disagree with me about my position on morality. Like there's just one secular humanist I know of, Matt Dillahunty. He disagrees with me on abortion. He thinks that abortion is amoral, and I disagree with him on that. So, but I mean, but that's just the idea that humans humans ought to be the standard for. I'm sorry, how things affect humans ought to be the standard for how we make our decisions, how we make our life decisions, and I expand that to all sentient creatures. Although I keep the name humanism, so it's immoral to stomp a puppy, even though it's not human. You can't kick puppies because it's not good for puppies to be kicked, right? So I expanded the sentience.
Yeah, I mean, I would really simply define it as a framework or system in which humans are capable of determining morals and or self-fulfillment without the necessity or intervention of a god. That's secular humanism.
All right. And so now that I got that down, so to use, what is your experience with faith in your backgrounds? Just so I know where you guys are coming from as far as past experiences. So ex-Christians, we're Christians, raised Catholic. What do we got?
I'll be really short. I was in church the first Sunday after I was born. I was raised in a Christian home, a Christian family. I went to a Christian school from kindergarten to 12th grade. I graduated valedictorian of that Christian school right beside that guy who was in the same class as me every day for 12 years. Then we both went to a Christian university together. We attended that. Both of us graduated. We both have degrees. Both of us attended Christian universities. Now, I started deconstructing, to use the term that a lot of people use when they leave religion. I started deconstructing a few years before he did, and I didn't want to get involved too heavily when he started asking some of the questions that I had during my deconstruction, because I feel we're close enough friends, I could have undoubtedly influenced him to kind of go in a certain path if I tried. That doesn't mean he would have stayed on that path. It just means I probably could have impacted it. However, I deconstructed from Christianity, although I was raised in a Christian family. My parents still go to church every Sunday. My sister is a Christian. I still went to, I grew up memorizing the Bible and scripture like it was the back of my hand. I went to church religiously, quite literally, and all until I was about 25-ish, somewhere in there, and then I started to deconstruct. And then my questions and inquisitive self started kind of asking questions that I couldn't find answers to. I sought leaders in the church. I sought leaders in the Christian community. I sought leaders in my home church, at my Christian college, to find answers to these questions that I just couldn't justify and that I couldn't rectify. And then I started getting to the point where I was picking and choosing what I wanted in the Bible. And at that point, I realized if I'm just going to pick and choose, there's really no need to hold on to it. And then I started looking at world religions. I took classes on world religion. I've read books on world religion. I've learned and studied how religion and culture kind of develops throughout history, and realized that honestly, Christianity is not anything new or special, and that the questions I have are because they're undoubtedly really good questions that a bad secular moral system written by humans in the Bible and other places came up with. And it really, if you start to, in my opinion, if you start to abandon the fact that the Bible is, I'm not saying inerrant, but like at least good for teaching, if you kind of give up on the idea that there's things in the Bible that you just can't justify, you're probably starting down the road to deconstruction, at least in my opinion. And then AAA, if you want to kind of do the same thing,
wow. Well, I'll try to keep it short. I like to get us back on topic, but you heard half of my story just through Facade. Also, we used to go out and we used to street preach. We used to go out outside of a university, and me and Facade, we used to go out and preach the gospel to people, and non-Christians would come in and argue with us, and we argue with them back, and we were very familiar with the scriptures. We were pretty good at apologetics too, and so that's our background. So that's it. But I would like to hear this benefit of Christianity.
And Michael's got an answer for you. But real
Okay.
quick, good or
You broke
bad,
up.
but abortion's good. Is that what I heard you say?
No,
No.
abortion is a justified immorality. It depends. So, okay, so
Kicking
remember,
abortion.
what? Say it again.
Dog's bad, but abortion can be justified as good.
No, good. No. So, that's another problem, right? So now we're equivocating. So you said justified, and then you said bad. All right. So let's be very clear with our terms. Okay. So kicking a puppy, I would say, is immoral because it isn't good for the puppy. But immoralities come in two forms, right? There's one type of a moral act, right? And that's just good, period. Immoral acts can be justified or unjustified. You tracking? So you're a police officer. I was too. We did things, most of the things that we did would fall into the category of justified immorality. Like you have to shoot somebody or you have to arrest somebody. It is immoral because it's bad for their well-being, for your well-being, for the well-being of their family members, for the community at large. But this has to be done because of what's happening, right? You have to stop this person. He's going to harm some people. So it is now justified immorality. So with abortion can be a justified immorality. But remember, it begins with sentience. So if there is no experience, then there's no well-being. So if the fetus doesn't have any sort of experience at all, then you couldn't affect its well-being because it's not sentient. It's like if I were to take a rock and bash it to pieces with a hammer, there's not a problem, right? If I take a baby and start doing it, you'd be like, oh, what the hell, So like it's because the baby can actually feel that the baby is experiencing that. So it happens. So once the baby becomes sentient, it is a justified immorality. Before then, it's amoral, which means it's not a moral question at all.
And what justifies that? I guess that's my question. What is the fact?
The context. So like just let's say like there's a shooting at a school, and you have to go in and take out that criminal, right? So it is immoral because you're shooting somebody. You're harming somebody. That's somebody's son, somebody's brother, whatever, right? So that's immoral. But it's justified because of the context. That person is actively engaging in homicide. You need to stop him. That is why it's justified. So it's the context of the situation. You're going to have to look at each individual situation to determine whether it's justified. And this is complicated because this is moral epistemology. We may not even agree on whether or not it's justified. Like there's talks about. I was at drill a few weeks ago. We were talking about Hiroshima, right? When we dropped the nuke on that city, and there was talks about whether or not that was the right thing to do, whether or not it was definitely immoral because you killed a bunch of people, right? But was it justified? And that's a lot of things you have to consider. We're diving into moral epistemology. But however, because of reality, there is an objective fact whether or not you were that was actually justified concerning context. It's just that our limited understanding, our epistemology is limited by our ability to gather and analyze information. And that's limited by the human mind. Reality is not that. Reality is objective. It's just what it is.
So because it's limited, you could be wrong and I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, you could definitely be wrong. That doesn't affect the objective basis of it. So
about our objective base, because we decide this is objective, this is good or bad. But if our understanding is limited on that matter, then we could both be wrong about the same thing and have different answers.
Yes, just like two people can read the Bible and come to different interpretations and then both be wrong, right? You're using your epistemology. Yes, we could be wrong because we don't have all the information, but it is based. But the basis of my moral ontology is determined by the reality. In order for us to make sense of it, now we have to dive into moral epistemology, and that of course is limited by the amount of information available to us and our ability to comprehend it.
Michael, I'm sorry we kind of left you in the lurch there on our dive. Do you want to add on to anything that?
Well, why don't you just give them your background, since part of the reason why I brought you is because you and Caldwell kind of have literally like opposite stories.
I'm all for it. I'm just curious, like, is there, like, I'll ask the question this way. So when it comes to the topic and the overall arching topic of this whole conversation, do you think that Christianity explicitly provides, even when the context of, like, having the concept of a God involved, something that, let's say, like, other religions don't provide for them? Because it seems to me that no matter where we go down this conversation, that either if you take the God aspect out of it or the supernatural aspect out of Christianity, there's nothing you could gain that I couldn't by doing something else. And since we're taking the God aspect away, we could just throw in another religion. We could say, oh, I could get the same aspects and qualities from another religion because there's no God aspect to worry about. We can just, like, you, for instance, a lot of people say, like, oh, there's a community involved in, like, Christianity, and I agree. There undoubtedly is. But I could get a community by attending a, poetry slam meeting every week, or I could go into... No, I'm not going to. But, I could join, like, a book club, or I could go clubbing, or I could do a number of things. I could join Islam.
Exactly. What we're looking for is some sort of utility that is unique and exclusive to Christianity, that is not contingent on a God. So if we were to say,
don't get me wrong, if Christianity were true, you guys have a lot going for you. Don't get me wrong.
Definitely.
But if you take away the fact that, like, it you said whether it's, whether a God exists or not, when you take that away, you take, it seems, at least in my opinion, all the good things Christianity could give you. The possibility of a heaven, being reunited with your family, that kind of thing, all of it would be gone because the God doesn't exist to do it.
No, that's what we're looking for.
All right. So I didn't want to bring in other religions because none of us are experts on other religions, but yes, like, you could get some of the same benefits from other religions that you could from Christianity, but purposely I was only trying to keep it contained to, like, atheism versus Christianity because that's two things that we're both very familiar with.
Sure. But so atheism is not a thing, right? So, like, atheism is just a lack of belief in a God. It doesn't tell you anything about a person's morals. It doesn't tell you about their belief in the supernatural. It doesn't tell you anything about the origin of the universe, about purpose, meaning. It's not a worldview. Atheism is not a worldview.
Well, atheists are like people that are like very devoted to proving, like, kind of there isn't a God.
No. Wrong. It has nothing to do with so atheism. What Justin say? I didn't copy.
I said I never met an atheist who wasn't a secular humanist because if they believed in anything else, they would be an atheist.
I know several atheists that are spiritualists.
Yeah, so but secular humanists. So you could be a secular humanist without being an atheist. You could just be a deist, or you can think there's a God he's just bad, and so I'm gonna do what's good for humanity, and that's secular humanism. It's not contingent on that. That's what I was gonna say. So comparing atheism and Christianity, it's like saying this rock is heavier than this tree is tall. Like, you're comparing things that shouldn't be compared. They're in different categories.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted a true comparison, you'd look at atheism versus theism, right? Like the belief in God versus a non-belief in God. But a belief in God doesn't get you Christianity, nor any of the merits or principles that come with it, right? The only thing you have in common with a theist is that you both believe in a God. You may not even believe in the same one. right? And a theist might have, like a polytheist, they may have multiple gods, right? And so saying like an atheist versus a theist is probably more accurate, but as he was saying, it doesn't tell you anything about their morality or their worldviews or their view of anything else. It just tells you their stance on a deity. So when I say, when you say, if you identified yourself as a theist, I'd be like, oh, you believe in some form of God. But I wouldn't know anything more than that. To assume that you worship the Christian God, or that you worship Brahma, or that you anticipate that you're going to be greeted in Valhalla by Odin, like, would be just an assumption on my behalf. Now, given where people are born and raised and all that fun stuff, you could probably deduce their religion, but it's an assumption nonetheless until you ask them.
So to go back to the initial topic, right? Can you find some sort of utility that is unique and exclusive to Christianity, that is not contingent on a God?
Well, I never said it has to be unique to Christianity as opposed to like not being part of other religions.
Well, but I thought you were saying that you can have a better life with Christianity than without.
Yeah, without it. Yeah,
okay, but if you can get the same benefit from other religions,
then it needs as compared to you.
Well, then it needs to be unique. But I have a great life. I don't know what you're talking about. I have a wife and a kid. I have an awesome career. I got friends and family. Like, I mean, like
friends.
Yeah, I got plenty
of
friends. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like my life, the quality of my life has not gone down since I've been an atheist.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. Is basically, is your life better or worse since you went from atheism to Christianity?
Better.
And Justin went from atheism to Christianity, and yeah, I mean, honestly,
but that doesn't mean that it was Christianity that did that. I mean, like, so Malcolm X, the dude was a criminal and a womanizer, and then he found Islam and became an upright guy. That doesn't mean. So now, are we can make this about Islam? Like, that doesn't. Somebody finding a religion and then finding meaning in that religion. I'm not saying that can't happen. Right, but that's not exclusive to that religion, because you can find meaning in anything. There's some people who, like, they didn't know what they want to do in life, and then they found this new career. They're like, "Oh, I was made to do this," and then they find joy and meaning and great utility in that thing. But it's not exclusive to that. If you found purpose and you found value in that, then the value is in the purpose. The value is in the value itself. And you're just happening to find that in Christianity, but it's not exclusive to that.
I don't know every single religion out there in the world, so I can't be like, oh, Christianity has this, but every other religion out in the world doesn't have that. I'm going to say, I'm not telling you to rule out all the other religions. I'm going to say I would even go this far. I don't see a benefit in Christianity that I can't find without religion at all. Yeah, and that's what I was originally trying to do.
Give me one. Give one to me. I got family, got community.
Okay.
I have an objective morals. I wouldn't have that if I was a Christian.
Has your family ever disappointed you?
Yeah.
Has your friends ever disappointed you?
Yeah.
Oh, I can answer that for him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a walking disappointment.
You want to say, has God disappointed me?
Well, with Christians, we can always rely on God.
No, you can't.
Has your imaginary friend ever disappointed you?
So my imaginary
has yours, because yours has a name,
right? So in order for my imaginary friend to disappoint me, he has to exist in order to be capable of anything. But
he's never disappointed you, then.
You're right. and that's what you want to say about God. Is sure he's never disappointed anything because he doesn't exist. But
today, yesterday, forever.
I would say that the God, as he is described in the Bible, that being would disappoint me a lot, over and over and over again. It was my disappointment. It was my disillusion that initially led me away from Christianity.
Yeah, same. Like, by the way, like, to kind of delve into that a little bit is just like the things that we were talking about during my deconversion and the things that we mentioned earlier about slavery and murder and things in the Old Testament. Like, if you think that your God, who's supposed to be maximally powerful and maximally knowledgeable, you said, oh yeah, I saw, maximally knowledgeable and maximally powerful, and yet still allows for things like slavery, and still gives rules for things like slavery, and still gives commands for things like go and kill everyone there, all the women, the children, unless they're virgins. If that's not disappointing for someone who's supposed to be all powerful and all knowledgeable, then I don't know how to disappoint you, because there's nothing I could do that would even come close to that in the disappointment era, because I couldn't command people to go and murder everybody.
Do you any of you have children?
Justin does.
So I have
Too, so.
like I have a child. I'm raising a 3-year-old. If she became anything like Yahweh, I'd be very disappointed. I would be devastated if she developed his morals.
All right, see,
I would say that would be disappointment.
Disappointment is when you like expect something, but the person doesn't live up to that like expectation. So if you're disappointed from like reading the Bible, that's because your idea of God isn't matching up with what the Bible is telling you.
Do you think God should be omnibenevolent?
My idea of the family isn't matching up with what the family actually is.
So you had created your own God in your head that wasn't actually biblically based.
It's the fact that I know what the biblical God is that I'm disappointed.
Yes. It doesn't matter what idea that I have. Like I think killing children, killing babies, I think running through an infant with a sword is an awful thing. Irrespective of, say it again.
You're pro-choice though.
Yeah, it's a justified immorality.
Okay.
But it's not with God. God doesn't need justified immoralities. He's omnipotent, right? So he could just do something good. He doesn't need to appeal to an immoral act to accomplish a greater good. He's omnipotent. So
your God could take that baby out of the womb without hurting the mother or her being aware of it, place it in some tube somewhere, and let it grow to adulthood, raising it by hand. Unfortunately, humans don't have such a technology. We're limited to things like the procedure, which is called abortion, and that is what we're stuck with for now. If it gets better, I vote we get better, and we make it better, and we do things to not harm the child in the process, but until then, we're stuck.
All right,
your God isn't.
God did or didn't do because you had different expectations for God.
It's not about
That's why you had been disappointed. Let me give you an example. Like if a serial killer is going around killing a bunch of people, and then he kills another person, you're not disappointed because you had expected he was going to kill another person.
Oh well, sure, okay, sure.
But if he comes up to you, if the serial killer comes up to you, he's like, "I promise, I'm never going to kill anybody ever again," and you like really believe him, and then he goes and kills another person, then you're going to be disappointed in him because you had believed.
All right. So to be fair, so I guess I'm not disappointed in the Christian God. Then him murdering children is something that I would expect from him.
Exactly.
So it's not disappointment. I'd put him in the same moral level as the serial killer we was talking about.
Yeah. So God is never going to disappoint you. Christians never get disappointed by God.
Yeah, sure.
Right,
he won't disappoint
but being
me,
disappointed by a God who's a murderer doesn't help.
Right. If there's a serial killer running around, I don't think disappointment is going to be the main thing you're worried about, right? But like, oh snap, this serial killer.
He stopped killing people. Darn it.
Yes. No. So if this is the one benefit you can think of, I mean.
All right. Well, you take everything the Bible says, and then the Bible is constantly telling you that like God loves you. God so loved the world, He gave His one and only Son.
He loves some of you.
You take that, you're never going to be disappointed by that.
I like how people get caught off guard by that. They're not willing to talk about it. God doesn't love all people.
Are you responding to a comment?
What are you saying? Or what are you talking about?
I mean, like for instance, like there's a clear passage that, like in the Old Testament, where it says, "Jacob have I loved, and Esau have I hated." Or how about Pharaoh, who he made strictly to be a being of destruction?
So Romans 9. Yeah. So God, because He is God, has the prerogative to decide on who He loves. He isn't bound to owe anyone mercy or love. He chooses to do so, just like nobody's forcing you to have this conversation, but chooses to do so. You have that
I agree 100%. So if your God isn't all loving, then does it really
But then in your world, do you love all people?
I mean, I love
No.
all people equally. No. No, I don't claim to be all loving either.
Yeah, nor am I. So like, I mean,
nor do I claim to be able to save people like for an eternity, or say that I'm going to send a son to sacrifice myself to myself. Like, I don't make these claims either. So like, I wouldn't really want to compare myself to God, because honestly, He's done a lot of really bad things that I don't want to be associated with.
Interesting. And Michael, do you have a question, or want me to go ask?
I'd like to know what the benefit is, man.
I thought you were going to handle the Esau thing.
We
Okay.
can't.
Yeah, well, it says Romans 9 is talking about Jacob I've loved, Esau I've hated, and it's talking about election. It's talking about God's prerogative and sovereignty. And Romans 9 is a pillow which I lay down every night. It's a great text. But in regard to what does Christianity have that? I mean, I don't know you're pitting us against other religions in the sense of, I think whatever your opinion should be, or what your worldview is, and how what Christianity has that your worldview doesn't have. And I would say consistency. It's not arbitrary. As Michael said before, you don't have the fear of death, because
it is arbitrary. It's definitely arbitrary. If someone, let's say someone goes and murders an entire community, just complete genocide, you won't be able to tell me if it was moral or immoral until you know who told him to do it.
No, only okay. And again, this is I'm confused.
Yes. Okay, tell me. Is it wrong? I go in the city and I murder a bunch of people. Am I immoral?
Okay, again, I'm confused, because you guys said you went to Bible school, so I'm kind of wondering where this inconsistency with your hermeneutics coming in. God has the ability to determine right and wrong, because He is
that is literally the point. Okay, that is the point that I was making. There was no problem with my hermeneutics. That was the point that I was making. If somebody goes in and commits genocide, you couldn't determine if it was wrong until you realize who told them to do it. No. If it was God, then you would say it's moral. If it's not, then you would say this. Oh, really? So if God tells me to kill people and then I go do it, following God's command, then it's immoral?
You want to know why I know that? Because the New Testament. Because there was in the older times, God talked to people in many ways.
Where in the New Testament does it say that God won't tell people to kill somebody?
It's the prophet. So
the prophet. Give me a reference.
The prophets are primarily Old Testament, if I recall correctly. It's been a while, but
in these later times, He's talking to us through His Son, Christ Jesus, who's our mediator, who is the perfect priest. There is one mediator between God and man, and that is His Son, Christ Jesus.
I didn't hear an answer though. But where does the New Testament say that God won't tell someone to go kill someone else?
Yeah, like
I guess again, this is where I'm getting hit. I'm confused because you guys spent more time in Bible land than I.
Okay,
have.
Let me ask you a question.
About hermeneutics. Just answer the question. If it's so easy,
give the answer. Chevrolet, let me ask a question. Maybe it'll help.
He's confused by our hermeneutics. Like, if it's so easy.
Okay, let me ask a question. I think it'll help clarify things. Okay.
Okay.
Please do.
Is there anything in the Old Testament that the God of the New Testament cannot do?
I mean, it's the same God, so you gotta what
yes or no? That's
so
a yes or no question.
This is a yes or no question. Is the God of the New Testament limited any more than the God of the Old Testament? Is there any limits in the New Testament God?
If you know the hermeneutics, the answer is no.
Right. If your God is the same today, yesterday, and forever, right? Your answer to that should be undoubtedly no. Therefore, the God of the Old Testament, who commanded Joshua to kill the Amalekites, could command someone in the New Testament to kill another group of people. There's nothing to stop him from doing so, because otherwise you'd be limiting your God.
Thus, your moral system is arbitrary, just like I said. You wouldn't be able to know if genocide is moral or immoral until you first establish who told him to do it. That's the point that I was making.
You're trying to make. The problem with that, again, is the hermeneutical aspect of it, that going through the New Testament, it's crystal clear that there is one mediator.
Look, hold on, stop. Okay, let's try to make this into like a form of syllogism. Okay. So Facade asked you, is there anything that the New Testament God, that the Old Testament God,
it's the same God.
You said it's the same God. So yes. All right. So the Old Testament God was saying to commit genocide. What I'm asking is why the New Testament God can't do it. And when I ask you this question, you just say hermeneutics, and also I'm confused. Please just give me a reference.
The only thing I'm confused on is the fact that you guys spend so much time in church and are asking that kind of question.
Okay, sure. I understand you're confused, but could you answer the question?
Because the mediator of the new covenant that Christians are a part of is Christ Jesus, and it was culminated at the life, death, and the resurrection of Christ, and He's essentially all that we have for life and practice of the Christian faith is the Holy Scriptures, which dictate both our moral system, our worldview, and our faith, which is in Christ. And we have.
It's not about what we have. We're asking about what God can do. God, right? God isn't limited by our epistemology from the Scriptures.
Okay.
He can act.
Yes, he can, and he does.
Okay, so then it answered the question is yes. Well, I don't know why it's so hard. I don't know why you're confused either.
Okay.
This is really easy. It's the same God, right? So.
And again, this is.
Are you saying? Let me ask it this way: are you saying God is incapable of telling me to kill someone?
I'd say he wouldn't.
Okay, but I'm not asking would he. I'm asking is he capable?
One mediator of Christ Jesus.
I'm not asking would he, or do you think he will, or do you think he actually did if I were to go out and kill someone. I'm asking, is God capable, or is something limiting him from doing so?
He has his own character, and we see that in the Scripture. We see the sacrifice of Christ, we see the ascension, we see what we can through the Scriptures and through faith, that we have the person that the God was presented to us in the person and work of Jesus Christ, so that he says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father.
I'm not trying to be rude, but you said earlier that God, the same God from the Old Testament, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So unless his character changed, he can still tell people to murder people because he did so in the past. So if God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, then today, the God of today, which is the same God of yesterday, which you assume is more than just actually yesterday, right? It's the past, the God of the past, the God of the Old Testament, if you will, is the same God that commanded Joshua to kill the Amalekites, is the same God today that could command someone to go out and kill someone else, and the same God tomorrow that could command someone else to conquer a land in his name. Because his character does not change.
Yes, but because he's God, he can determine that this is his will. And so for him, this isn't right or wrong. This is what he's decreed as right.
I'm not asking you to determine whether it's right or wrong, because if your God truly exists, then what you're saying is what he says is right. Therefore, if he commands someone to go and murder people, like he did to Joshua with the Amalekites, Joshua was doing a good moral thing according to God. The problem is, God didn't always command people to murder people. Therefore, you have a moral arbitration system. And when Triboulet asked you, you'd have to determine who gave you that command before you could determine the act. You said no. But if you went back and read the Old Testament and you didn't know that God commanded Joshua to murder the Amalekites, would you say it's an immoral act? You wouldn't know until you read the text and said, God said so, and then you'd say, no, it's not an immoral act because God said so, right? That's what you should say.
And no.
No? So it was an immoral act whether God commanded it or not?
No, that
'Cause
is
I'm
based on
confused
the New
here.
Testament. We have a clear.
No. I'm not asking about the New Testament right now. I'm asking when God commanded Joshua to kill the Amalekites, was it a moral act or not?
When he did, yes.
Okay, so God commanded somebody to kill somebody,
Yes,
and that was moral. And if God says, "Thou shalt not kill" in Exodus 20, then you have a quite literal, obvious back and forth dichotomy of killing versus not killing. And God has commanded both. And yet you say that our morals are wishy-washy and that our morals are based on nothing. Your morals are based on a God whose arrogance and judgment is at his whim.
So
Again,
okay, so don't use the word murder. Then we can just use the word kill, because
No, murder and
has
killing is different.
Okay, so killing babies. All right, so here's the thing. All right, there's a baby, right? A cute little baby. A guy comes up and thrusts it with a sword. Is it immoral?
well, you'd have to. You're the one who's determining that in your own worldview. So
I'm asking you. And my worldview would say no. I'm asking you your worldview. Tell me.
Yes, obviously it's immoral, and then if going back.
Okay. So okay.
If God told him to do it, then see, he told him to do it then. So it must be okay now for people.
No. So okay, so when God told Moses to kill the Amalekite babies, God was being immoral then.
No.
You just said it's immoral to kill a baby.
Now.
So it's immoral. Okay, it's immoral. It was immoral then.
So it's just subjective
then,
to
but
time?
now it's not.
When God did in the Old Testament, again, he is God. And just like how you decide what's right and wrong in your own eyes, well, guess what?
No,
God
it's not. It's not what's going on. I explained that thoroughly. I don't know why you keep saying that.
Because ultimately, secular humanism is man determining what is right. And that is what you are doing.
Wrong. But we're not going to. Somebody can go back and listen to the video. I pointed this out several times, despite you kept trying to rephrase it as that. This is an intentional straw man. This is easy. Okay, you said somehow killing babies is immoral. God kills baby, but that's not now, and killing babies isn't immoral.
Unless you're you, and then it's moral half the time, the other half the time it's a necessary evil. The problem with this is I know the line of...
There's no necessary evil. What are you talking about? Was I supposed to straw man my version of a justified immorality? What are you talking about? Necessary evil.
You're trying to equivocate to what God did in the Old Testament, to what God's doing in the New Testament, in a sense of...
No, I'm trying to figure out an objective framework to your moral ontology, and you do not have one. You do not have one, because you cannot tell me whether or not killing babies is wrong. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It's good when God does it.
God, and this is where I'll be very clear on this fact, so I don't have to keep saying this 5 times. God is the objective standard. He determines what is right and wrong.
No, it's not. He's an agent. That's not what objective means.
Wait, how about you just tell me what I believe, and then I'll just listen to you if you can write a book.
I'm not telling you what you believe. I'm telling you what objective morality is. This isn't about
you
your
realize
belief.
objective means morality. Like outside of a mind, right? Like I know a lot of people like they say when like they think that Christianity provides some sort of objectivism. What they're doing is they're appealing to authority. Specifically, they're appealing to their God, right? But in reality, it just seems like your God is the person with the biggest guns or the most smarts, right? Like that. In reality, that's what it is.
Earlier, we are limited by our ability to understand. So, in your worldview, it's whoever has the bigger mind and who can understand is the ultimate person.
Wrong. It's okay. Let's clear this up. All right. So you have a board, and you're trying to get this as close to 12 inches as possible, right? And your objective framework is the ruler, which is definitely 12 inches, right? So now your ability to analyze this board is your epistemology, right? The ruler itself is the ontology. We tracking? All right. So if you're blind, your ability to assess whether or not this board is actually 12 inches is going to be limited. That does not affect whether or not the board is actually 12 inches.
Who decides what 12 inches is?
The 12 inch. So it's an analytic proposition. So when I say morality, What are you asking?
Who made the ruler?
So like,
Well, in
the, I
this,
mean,
it's an
so
analogy for reality
so
itself.
to take this back to my position, it would be reality. Like, who made reality?
Created a ruler that's 12 inches.
No, we're saying the ruler is akin to reality.
Yes.
Maybe you're missing the analogy.
Yeah, the ruler represents reality.
And how do you know what reality is?
That's irrelevant. So we're talking about ontology. We got to get the ontology down first because you're conflating things. So how do you know what reality is? Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways you can know that. Maybe not for certain, but it doesn't matter. Your ability to know what reality is has no effect on what reality is. Reality is just is, and it doesn't care whether or not you know about it. And so when we talk about murder hurts people and thus immoral, regardless of what you think about it. In your framework, it depends on what God wants. Yours is not objective. Yours is arbitrary. It is nonsense.
Okay.
Christianity definitely makes morality worse.
We're getting closer to the end. I have a really fun challenge for both of you. It doesn't take long, and it's super fun. I challenge you to take a few minutes and make your own superhero. And I want you to come up with qualities and things that the superhero could do. And things that these powers that the superhero could have. And then I want you to write down examples of things that the superhero could do that would be good. And then what I want you to do is go back through the Bible and compare those things to all the times your God did something opposite to that superhero. Because there are many occasions, and I know we're stuck on Old Testament versus New Testament, but if your God is the same God in the Old Testament and the New Testament, to me, it doesn't matter at what point in time your God murdered a bunch of people or killed a bunch of people or commanded somebody to kill a bunch of people. The fact that he did it means that your God did something that's atrocious, right? And so if I was creating a superhero and I wrote down that my superhero is going to go around and murder whole cities, then that's probably something that's going to align with your God. But as you were writing down a superhero, you probably get a really, really different view than your God. And then maybe, just maybe, you'd recognize the moral dissonance that you have with your God of the Old Testament versus the New Testament. Because your God in the Old Testament does a lot of things that you undoubtedly disagree with. Because you say murdering babies or running a sword through a baby is wrong, but your God commands that to happen. You say that, like, I bet you're probably anti-slavery, but your God gives specific rules on how to own slaves.
To abolish slavery.
The abolitionists in the southern United States.
Yeah,
depending on where you're talking about.
Yeah, it was abolished by different people at different points of time. And
what was the largest faith involved in abolishing slavery?
I guess that depends on where you get your slaves from.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so if we were to say that the most abolitionists were Christian, and if you're talking specifically about the nations where the most commonly practiced religion was Christianity, and of course the abolitionists would be Christians. There was like nobody else to do it. We're talking about like 19th century United States, 18th century Great Britain. Like 99% of the country's Christian. So anything that happens, good or bad, is likely done by a Christian. But that doesn't mean it was Christian.
They're undoubtedly the strongest proponents for slavery and the biggest proponents against, because they make up such a large amount of the population.
Yeah.
Did the Bible create slavery?
No.
No?
So
I mean, there were slaves before the Bible
rules
existed.
Because it supports it. The Bible didn't create baby killing either, but God did it. I mean,
slavery was already there.
So, but here's the thing.
But why would your omnipotent and omniscient God?
Okay. I think this is a silly argument, because you wouldn't go up to Charles Manson and say, "Well, did he invent murder? Did he invent serial killing?" No, it doesn't matter. He did it. So that's the problem. So whether or not a serial killer invented murder has no bearing about the moral status of his actions, which is kind of like what you're arguing here. I mean, come on.
Slavery was a necessity of the day. It was cultural. It wasn't
a necessity. Many cultures didn't have slaves.
But you got. I don't want to make this about slavery. Hopefully, we can just agree that slavery is bad.
Yeah,
It hurts other people.
Yeah,
yeah. People
that's
outside
what
of this
that.
conversation.
That's a good reason to call it immoral because it harms people, right?
Yeah, but I mean, by the way, your
Could
God,
you give me?
your
I
God
like
would say
I like
it's
somebody to
fine.
Give me,
Certainly in context.
I like somebody to give me an example of something that is definitely immoral that doesn't harm anyone in any way. Because you seem to have a problem with appealing to the consequences, and I just want to.
Well, I think consequentialism as a ethical system, again,
I'm not a consequentialist, so I'm asking.
I'm saying, like you just said, you brought it up, so I'm saying, like, I think that as a framework or as a major determinant in my worldview would not be a good word to have, because I could always justify my actions or groups would justify their actions.
But that's why we're not using consequentialism.
Could you answer my question though?
So you said yes, what's immoral but doesn't harm anyone?
Yeah, give me
could you
something
name an
that is-
immoral act?
You would agree that it's immoral that doesn't harm anyone in any way.
All right, what about masturbation?
So and you're saying
you
no
think
one
it's-
is harmed by it in any way?
I'd like to know whether you think it's moral or not first, because I'd be curious.
Yeah, it's immoral.
It's immoral.
For-
okay,
for the
I just
Bible,
wanted your stance
for-
on that.
The
Okay.
Bible. Now I'm wondering if you guys think
it
it's
doesn't
moral or
harm-
immoral.
I don't see where the Bible talks about specifically about that.
You can't,
I mean,
or lusting after
I know in
women.
Genesis it talks about
it is,
owning.
that is different.
Lusting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's different than
literally
masturbation.
The physical manifestation of masturbating is lust.
Not necessarily.
No,
But
it's a physical desire.
but-
You can lust after things in a non-sexual manner.
So
You
so
can be lustful of other people's
Yes,
property.
as a Christian, masturbation is not moral.
Sure, let's talk about that. And you're saying that doesn't harm anyone in any way.
Well, no. First, you think it's moral or immoral?
I'm asking you. I think it's amoral. But what I'm asking you, to name something that you think is immoral. It doesn't harm anyone in any way. You name that.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you are saying it doesn't harm anyone in any way.
From your point of view,
Not my point of view. I'm asking you. Name something that you believe is immoral that does not harm anyone in any way.
Well, as a Christian, the framework is that God is the one who's a moral lawgiver, and every offense, every sin is against God primarily.
I get the.
So even if it isn't against bothering somebody, that's a sin
Okay,
against
but can
somebody
you
else.
name something that you believe? That's fine. We're fine with the framework. We get you. But can you name something that you believe that is immoral, that doesn't cause harm to anyone in any way? Can you give an example of any act that would be immoral according to the Christian framework that also does not harm anyone in any way?
And again, that's hard because it would primarily insult God, and then yourself.
Okay, but we're talking about people. But go ahead.
So I mean, ultimately, any sin would have a trickle effect, where it insults God, it hurts yourself, and then has an impact on society. So it's like saying, like, okay, drink poison. What part of this poison won't kill you? It's like it's all bad. It's all going to kill you. You know, it's going to affect you. It's just the way it's. And again, that's the way it works.
But I mean, like, not trying to be rude, but it seems like we're not coming up with an answer to the question, right? Like, or am I just missing it?
Well, no. So yeah, if you're going through the Christian perspective, I don't think there'll be anything that's a sin that isn't going to affect you
or somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or somebody.
Okay.
But
so with that in mind, right?
From your point of view, I believe like masturbation would be like. I don't know if Caldwell's still there. If he's just like,
yeah, he probably went to check his daughter.
If he's in the room, but yeah, like a single person could masturbate and then not hurt anyone or anything, and it may be still considered immoral.
Right, but like, so you think that masturbation in and of itself does not harm anyone?
Not for the Christian perspective, but from like an atheist point of view.
But we're not talking about the atheist point of view, because like I'd even disagree with that. But
we gave you an answer. The answer worldview, which is what There's nothing that is immoral that doesn't affect somebody else.
Okay, so there's not one. So I think where he was going to go with this, and I could be wrong because he looks like he's back, but he was going to ask, like, probably going to go with, like, in the sense of the Christian worldview, there are things that happen that you would say are undoubtedly immoral unless you have God's permission.
Yeah. So, well,
It's the one who determined.
that's kind of the things, right? So, if we're looking at the consequences of an act, right, we're appealing to reality, right? If I punch you in the face,
The
it's just a
consequences
fact.
for reality.
Well, yeah, reality is where consequences occur.
They're not consequentialist. It's not hard. When the word is utility and consequence. Like, that is an ethical framework for decision making, which is what you keep making in these examples.
No,
So,
so
I mean-
consequentialism is a little different. But yes, the consequences play. I didn't want to go there because we could talk about like moral intent, right? And that doesn't require consequences at all. That's why I said, like, I'm not a consequentialist, because when we go into more epistemology, it gets a little more complicated. That's why it's not simple consequentialism. But when we're just talking about an act, by looking at the consequences, yes, we're appealing to reality, whereas you're appealing to God's mind. Now, when you appeal to a mind, that is necessarily subjective. You're basing it on an agent. That was the point that I was going to go to. So
Right,
you don't
and
have
to
it.
clarify that subjectivity. You agreed earlier that in the time of the things of the Old Testament, it was appropriate and moral because God commanded them. That makes it subjective to the time and the people he's speaking to in that moment.
It's subjective because he is objective. He is, again, this is the point that
That's not.
he comes around.
What do you think objective means?
He's changing his mind. God can do that.
Yeah, but if he tells you to kill someone and then he tells you to not kill someone, that's the definition of subjectivity.
I think we need a good definition of objective. But when you say objective, what do you mean by that?
He is the creator and sustainer of all things. And because he is that, because he is all powerful, all knowing, all good, and determine those things. He is God. That's what a God is.
Right,
all
but that leaves you open to the same problem we had earlier.
Yeah, so when I say objective, maybe we're using the same word, but meaning different things. Because when I say objective, like I'm not appealing to whether something is omniscient or omnipotent or anything like that. Like none of that even matters.
Well, appealing to a ruler.
So when we talk, no, we're not talking about my worldview anymore. We're just talking about the nature of objectivity. So we'd say like 12 inches, right? That is objectively a foot.
From who decides that?
So the reason is there's not a who. That's what makes it objective. So a 12 inches equal a foot. That is the analytic proposition.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why he spent some time on analytic propositions at the beginning, because we're defining something in such a way. If we define a foot as 12 inches, right, then the standard of being a foot consists of defining it as 12 inches. So no matter where you go and you say this is a foot long, you always mean 12 inches, because that's how we're defining the word foot.
And I think God, and this is the point, that God is just like that. He decides what is right, what is wrong. He is all
No, that's not what's going on. So, but that's.
I mean, in your worldview, you're absolutely right. The problem is that's still subjective.
But even in his worldview is not right, because so in his worldview, sometimes killing is good. Sometimes
that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying.
Like
it's opinion. It's the opinion of your God that makes something moral, right? That's what you're saying.
And again, I know you guys know this, right? Come on, we go to Sunday school. All right, here we go. Let's see this. We know that he is the determining factor.
You're not answering the question, man. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. Just answer the question with a yes or no. Is what God commands does what God commands make something moral?
Yes, because
so if God commanded someone to kill someone, it's a moral act. Like in the Old Testament, it was a moral act. Yes or no? You just said if God commanded it, it's moral. God commanded Moses to kill the Amalekites.
Right.
Is it moral?
This also justifies things like child rape, etc.
In that time, yes, is right and wrong.
Okay, so if God commands somebody to do something, it is then moral. No matter what God commands or who he commands it to. Correct?
Yes. But then you're then opposing that.
So it is subjective to what God says and when he says it and to whom he says it.
God tells
that is subjectivity.
That's what I said. God tells his prophet to go rape a child. It's now good. This is utter nonsense.
The Ten Commandments
that is subjectivity in a nutshell. It is literally contingent upon God's opinion, his time.
Murder and killing are very different things. If someone comes into your house with a gun and you shoot them, that's not, you didn't commit murder. Your moral standing is still good.
I mean, I'm not going to appeal to the Geneva Convention, but are you aware of like acts of war since you're both soldiers? You're aware that like killing innocent civilians in a civilian territory would be considered like a violation of the Geneva Convention?
But it's not. It's killing, not murder. Murder is like.
Would you say that's not murder?
How about rounding up the soldiers' wives and children? So we go to the Taliban, we're fighting the Taliban and stuff. We don't go find our wife and kids and kill them too.
And intentionally hunt them down and kill everyone in the town. You wouldn't say that's murder. I mean, I know you're at war, but you wouldn't say that's murder?
If God does it.
I gotta know. Sorry to like Michael. You have a great beard and you've been doing a lot. So I gotta jump in for this man splash. I shaved my beard yesterday, so I feel naked without it.
Still cut mine. I got it going long.
I like to kind of give y'all a last word. We've been going on for about like an hour and 45.
What I was gonna make is I feel like, and again, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It is what it is. And I'm older now. I've been have the same conversations with different people throughout my life. And the one thing I noticed is that the people who take the position you have historically, again, I was an atheist. Like my parents went to church as a kid. Later on, they didn't live it out. I experienced, tough realities of life, of living out in the system that you guys are now about to embark on. So have fun. I've felt the impacts of that throughout my entire life until I became a Christian at like 2021. And what I'll say is everyone I've met who's taken the position that you take has come from a home where they were loved, where they went to church, where there was some legitimate semblance of a family and a community that cared for them, loved them, prayed for them, and uplifted them.
Something bad happened.
Something
bad happened and turned them away from Christianity.
It's strange that then they go on this deconstruction trip where then they turn their back on everything and embrace what I consider to be the most arbitrary worldview that you could possibly get. And
the worldview is based on reality.
Say that I'll be praying for you, and I hope that when you live in that worldview long enough and you start facing the cold hard realities of when you're at Thanksgiving and you have no one to thank for your life, when you have a family, you have children, and you look at them and you say, well, there's nothing out there but stardust, that the reality sets in that you have to borrow from other worldviews, primarily the Christian worldview, to have a coherent moral system. And all I pray is that you guys have a short-lived trip through that worldview and come to faith in Jesus Christ.
I really hope that you study world religion someday to see how hilarious your statement of us borrowing things from the Christian perspective is. I want to challenge both of you with this, and then I'll give you last word. We'll wrap up the show. You guys can say whatever you want when I'm done talking, unless Triple A had something. But I just want to challenge you to this. Genuinely, with an open mind, I challenge you to take some time and go through the Bible and just write down the acts that God allowed or commanded to happen. And then take note of whether you would say these things, if God hadn't said them, would be good or even justifiable. And if you do that, and you do just like I did, and you do like he's done, where you come to this framework of saying, it doesn't matter to me if your God was real, and I knew he was real, I still would say he is unworthy of my worship because of the atrocities that your God has committed. So I challenge you sincerely to go through the Bible and just look at the acts on their own outside of your God Say, no matter who commanded it, whether it was Moses or God commanding Moses, or whether it was Joshua or whatever, go through some of these acts and ask yourself, could you justify them in any way? I really, really hope you can't. And the fact is that you're using your God to do it. And we've seen that today. We've looked at it today and we've said, well, murder's wrong and running a sword through a baby's wrong. But when God commanded it in the Old Testament, it was moral because God said so. That's literally what you said earlier today. So my challenge for you, and then you guys can have last word. I'll shut up. You guys can say whatever you want to say for a couple minutes and we'll end the show. But my challenge is to go through, remove your God from the actor of this giving commands, and look at some of these actions performed by people throughout the Bible and try to justify them without your God. I really, really, really hope that you can't, because there's a lot of actions like straight up genocide that occur. There's things like just keeping the unmarried women, the people that have had the virgin women for yourselves, that are mentioned over and over and over again throughout the history, slavery, etc. And so if you can go through and you can justify them without your God, you don't need your God. And if you can't justify them with your God because your God's doing it, maybe your God's not that good of a guy. You guys can have the floor. You can say what you want. I'm officially muting.
We didn't get to pick our God. We get the God that was given to us, and he is without sin. So we have to trust that everything he did was because they earned it. They deserve it. The Bible says the wages of sin are death, and we do all deserve to die except for Jesus Christ, who came to shield us from that. So the miracle isn't that the crazy part isn't that like he's murdering all those people. Crazy part is that we all deserve death. We all deserve what the Amalekites got. But because of Jesus Christ, through grace, we are going to avoid it. But yeah, just wanted to say thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it. Caldwell, good to argue with you again. Last time we argued, it was theology stuff.
Days, yes.
And I think I remember something. I don't really remember this one argument we had about like Goliath and how tall he was or something. I forget exactly what it was about. But,
I think so. I think we're talking about Goliath was the Bible says 6 cubits in a span. A cubit, a span is this cubit. So, and that's arbitrary, right? I mean, well, not arbitrary, but people are different sizes. So it could be as short as like it could be as short as like 6'5". It could be as tall as like 9 feet. You know, depending on the average person. But
I think we were talking about 40 meters tall.
Yep. So I mean, honestly, I was shocked when I found out you turned your way to faith even after we had all the debates and Christianity. But I mean, I don't know. You got a long life ahead of you.
Maybe.
I don't think, God willing, and I don't think he's done with you. I just wish you the best, man.
Appreciate it, man. Dude, yes, both of y'all, thanks for coming on the show. It was a lively discussion. Like I said, if you get heated sometimes, I mean, but I had fun. Hope y'all had fun as well. If you too will oblige, like and subscribe to the channel. Spread us
already subscribed.
Oh, dope. Also, just so you know, like we're both atheists, but we're not. This isn't an atheist channel. It's a debate channel. We debate a lot of things. Next week we're going to have Joe Bob on. We're going to be debating reparations.
It's not next week. It's the week after.
It's the week after. Yeah, okay. We got a bye week. Okay.
Yeah. That's the week of the holidays. The next Tuesday is the day after Christmas.
Yeah. So we're gonna have we're gonna be debating reparations. We got some more debates coming y'all's way. I forget some of the other ones coming up, but we got plenty. So
we got. I'm sure we got climate change, and then we have a person that was on our show that deconstructed. They're gonna come.
Yes. First, we had an apologist come on the show, left Christianity as a result of a conversation with us. So, Bro probably think that was a bad thing. I mean, I don't think I hit a facade up. I was like, yo, look what happened.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both for coming on. I know things get heated. It's not personal by any means. Don't think of it that way. Really, thank you guys for coming on. It's like always good to have a good discussion and just kind of pick people's brains and see their thoughts and kind of how they articulate themselves and what they believe. And I always enjoy it, which is kind of why we came up with the show. But thank you guys again for coming on. It was really fun. Hope you enjoyed it as well.
No, glad to have been here. And I guess final remarks from Michael said is he was like, again, love you both. Don't come across too hard. I just, again, I had these conversations throughout my life, and I'm coming from the opposite direction of you guys. And I'm telling you that the worldview that you're barking up, not good. And when you hold people in your arms who are dying, when you look at kids in the face, when you go through the harsh realities of life, and you start to see things that you can cut the hypotheticals, and they start becoming real. And I appreciate you having us on here, and good luck with the climate activists.
Thanks. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you